Jessica Carter stood at the altar in her ivory wedding gown, the delicate lace sleeves trembling as her hands shook. The church was filled with 200 guests, their eyes boring into her back as the minutes ticked by. Tyler Morrison, the man she had loved for 3 years, the man who had proposed to her on a beach at sunset, was not there. The whispers started quietly, like the rustle of leaves before a storm, but they grew louder with each passing moment. Jessica kept her eyes fixed on the heavy wooden doors at the back of the church, willing them to burst open. Willing Tyler to rush in with some reasonable explanation for being 40 minutes late to their own wedding. The officiant, Reverend Matthews, cleared his throat for what felt like the 100th time. His expression was a mixture of pity and discomfort that made Jessica want to sink into the marble floor. She could hear her mother sobbing quietly in the front pew, and the sound was like a knife twisting in her chest. A woman in the third row made no effort to lower her voice. She always thought he was too good for her. A waitress marrying a marketing executive. Who did she think she was? Jessica felt the blood drain from her face. She had worked at the Riverside Diner for 5 years, putting herself through community college courses at night, saving every penny. There was no shame in honest work, but in this moment, surrounded by Tyler's affluent family and their country club friends, she felt every insecurity she had ever buried come rushing back to the surface. Her phone buzzed in the small clutch her maid of honor Cassidy held. Cassidy's face went pale as she looked at the screen, and Jessica knew. She knew before Cassidy even showed her the message. 3 words that shattered everything. I cannot do this. Sorry. The church erupted in a chaos of gasps and excited chatter. Jessica stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. This was not real. This could not be real. She had tried on this dress 17 times. She had tasted 40 different cake samples. She had argued with the florist about the exact shade of pink for the roses. All of it for nothing. People were standing now, some moving toward the exits, others pulling out their phones to capture her humiliation for social media. Jessica saw flashes going off, heard the cruel laughter barely concealed behind hands. This was entertainment for them. The poor girl who reached too high and fell spectacularly. She turned to run, to escape this nightmare, but her heel caught in the hem of her gown. As she stumbled, strong hands caught her arms, steadying her. Jessica looked up into the face of Adrian Steele, and her confusion multiplied tenfold. Adrian was the owner of Steele Enterprises, commercial real estate empire worth billions. Jessica had been working as his executive assistant for 2 years, a job that paid 3 times what she made at the diner and had allowed her to finally quit waitressing 6 months ago. He was brilliant, ruthless, and impossibly distant. In 2 years, she had never seen him smile, never heard him discuss anything that was not related to business, never witnessed a single moment of warmth. And yet here he was, holding her upright, his steel-gray eyes fixed on hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. He was dressed in an impeccable charcoal suit, his dark hair perfectly styled. His presence commanding immediate attention from everyone in the church. "Pretend I am the man you are marrying," he said quietly, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Trust me, Jessica." Before she could respond, before she could even begin to process what he was suggesting, Adrian turned to face the crowd. His voice carried through the church with natural authority. "There has been a change of plans. Tyler Morrison will not be joining us today. I will be taking his place as the groom." The church exploded in shocked murmurs. Jessica felt the world tilting beneath her feet. This was insane. This was impossible. But Adrian was already addressing Reverend Matthews, his tone leaving no room for argument. Explaining some fabricated family emergency that required this sudden substitution, the Reverend looked desperately, uncomfortable, glancing between Adrian, Jessica, and the stunned congregation. "This is highly irregular. I am not certain I can proceed with such an arrangement." Adrian pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket. Jessica had no idea what it was, but the way he presented it with such confidence made the Reverend hesitate. "I assure you everything is in order. All legal requirements have been met. The bride has consented. Do you have any actual grounds to refuse?" Jessica should have objected. She should have explained that she had not consented to anything, that this was madness. but when she looked out at the faces in the crowd, saw the mockery and pity and cruel delight at her misfortune, something in her snapped. She was tired of being looked down upon, tired of being the girl who was not good enough. If Adrian Steele, one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the city, was willing to stand beside her right now, then she would let him. Yes, she heard herself say, her voice stronger than she felt. I consent. Let us continue. The Reverend looked like he wanted to argue further, but Adrian's presence was overwhelming. Within moments, they were standing side by side at the altar. Adrian took her hand, his grip warm and steady. Jessica noticed for the first time how tall he was, how his presence seemed to fill the space around them. Reverend Matthews began the ceremony with visible reluctance, rushing through the words as if speed might somehow make this less bizarre. Jessica barely heard him. She was too focused on Adrian, on the surreal reality that she was about to marry her boss, a man she barely knew outside of quarterly reports and business strategy meetings. Do you, Adrian Steele, take Jessica Carter to be your lawfully wedded wife? The Reverend asked. I do, Adrian said without hesitation, his eyes never leaving Jessica's face. And do you, Jessica Carter, take Adrian Steele to be your lawfully wedded husband? Jessica opened her mouth, her mind screaming that this was wrong, that she should stop this madness right now. But then she saw Tyler's mother in the third row. That smug expression of satisfaction that her son had escaped marrying beneath his station. She saw the phone still recording, waiting to capture her breakdown. She saw her own mother, tears streaming down her face, hopeful despite everything. I do, Jessica whispered. The words felt like jumping off a cliff. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Adrian leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. But Jessica did not move. His lips touched hers, gentle and brief, and the crowd burst into applause that sounded more confused than celebratory. When he pulled back, Adrian's expression was unreadable. But there was something in his eyes that Jessica could not quite identify. He offered his arm, and she took it. They walked down the aisle together as husband and wife, and Jessica felt like she was moving through a dream. This was not her wedding. This was some alternate reality where nothing made sense. Outside the church, Adrian guided her to his black Mercedes, his hand at the small of her back. Jessica's mind was spinning. What have I just done? What have we just done? The reception, Adrian said calmly, as if he had not just married a woman in place of another man. We need to attend the reception and maintain the appearance that this was planned. Jessica stared at him. You cannot be serious. We cannot just show up at my wedding reception as if this is normal. Adrian's expression was firm. Jessica, you have two choices. You can go home, let everyone know this was a farce, and become the laughingstock they already believe you to be. Or you can hold your head high. Play this out. And show them all that you are not someone to be pitied or mocked. The steel in his voice cut through her panic. He was right. As insane as this situation was, turning back now would only make things worse. She took a shaky breath and nodded. Okay. Let us do this. The reception was held at the Grand Harbor Hotel, an elegant venue overlooking the waterfront. When Jessica and Adrian walked in, the room fell silent. Every face turned toward them, shock and confusion written clearly across their features. The wedding coordinator looked like she might faint. Adrian handled it with the same confidence he brought to boardroom negotiations. He made a brief announcement explaining that Tyler had experienced a family emergency, and that he and Jessica had decided to proceed with the celebration as planned. His delivery was so smooth, so authoritative, people seemed to accept it simply because he said it with such conviction. The evening unfolded like a fever dream. Jessica cut a cake she had chosen with another man, danced a first dance to a song that was supposed to be hers and Tyler's, accepted congratulations from people who looked deeply confused but were too polite or intimidated by Adrian to ask probing questions. Through it all, Adrian remained at her side, playing the role of devoted groom with surprising skill. He was attentive without being overbearing, protective without being possessive. When an older woman made a snide comment about the sudden change in grooms, Adrian responded with such icy politeness that the woman quickly excused herself. During their first dance, Jessica finally allowed herself to look at him properly. Really look at him. Adrian Steele was objectively handsome, with sharp features, intense gray eyes, and an athletic build that his perfectly tailored suits only hinted at. But more than that, there was something about the way he carried himself, confidence and power that was undeniably attractive. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly as they swayed to the music. "Why would you marry a complete stranger to save her from embarrassment?" Adrian was silent for a long moment. "You are not a stranger, Jessica. I have worked with you for 2 years. I know you are intelligent, capable, far stronger than you give yourself credit for. That does not answer my question." His jaw tightened slightly. "Let us just say I have my reasons. For now, focus on getting through this evening. We will figure out the rest later. The rest." The reality of what they had done was beginning to sink in. They were married. Legally, officially married. Jessica felt panic rising in her chest again. What had she gotten herself into? As the reception finally wound down, Adrian drove her back to her apartment. The silence in the car was heavy with unspoken questions and uncertain futures. When he pulled up outside her building, Jessica hesitated before opening the door. "What happens now?" she asked. Adrian stared straight ahead at the steering wheel. "Now we figure out how to undo this mess without making everything worse. I will contact my attorney in the morning to discuss our options for annulment. In the meantime, we keep this quiet and maintain appearances at work." Jessica nodded slowly. Though nothing about this felt simple. "Thank you, Adrian. For today. For saving me from complete humiliation." He finally turned to look at her, and again she saw that unreadable expression in his eyes. "Do not thank me yet, Jessica. You might end up regretting this more than you can imagine." She climbed out of the car and watched him drive away. Still wearing her wedding dress, legally married to a billionaire she barely knew, and with absolutely no idea what her life had just become, Jessica arrived at Steele Enterprises on Monday morning with her stomach in knots. She had spent the entire weekend in her apartment, ignoring phone calls and deleting social media apps. After seeing the photos and speculation about her wedding circulating online, the story had taken on a life of its own. Some claimed she and Adrian had been having a secret affair for months. Others suggested Tyler had discovered the relationship and fled. Every version was wrong. The truth was too bizarre to be believed. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt like ascending to her own execution. When the doors opened, the entire office seemed to freeze. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Coffee cups paused halfway to lips. Every eye turned toward her as she walked to her desk outside. Adrian's office, she could hear the whispers starting immediately. "That is her. Can you believe it? She married the boss. How long has that been going on?" Jessica sat down at her desk, powered on her computer, and tried to pretend everything was normal. Her hand shook slightly as she typed in her password. She had a meeting to schedule, reports to review, emails to answer, work. She could focus on work. The door to Adrian's office opened, and he stepped out. He looked exactly as he always did, perfectly composed in a navy suit, his expression revealing nothing. "Good morning, Jessica. Please bring the Morrison contract file when you have a moment." His tone was completely professional, as if nothing had changed between them. Jessica found that somehow both comforting and deeply unsettling. "Good morning, Mr. Steele. I will bring it right in." She gathered the file with trembling hands and entered his office, closing the door behind her. The moment it clicked shut, she let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Adrian was standing by the window overlooking the city. "We need to establish some ground rules," he said without turning around. "At work, nothing has changed. You are my assistant. I am your employer. We maintain complete professionalism." Jessica set the file on his desk. "And outside of work?" Adrian finally turned to face her. "Outside of work, we need to be convincing as a married couple, at least for a few months. My attorney advised that an immediate annulment would raise too many questions and could potentially create legal complications. Fraud, misrepresentation of intent. It would be better if we wait, establish that we tried to make it work, and then file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. A few months? Jessica felt panic rising again. How many months are we talking about? 6 at minimum, possibly longer depending on how quickly. We can process the paperwork without attracting unwanted attention. 6 months married to Adrian Steele. 6 months of pretending, lying, maintaining a facade. Jessica sank into one of the leather chairs facing his desk. This is insane. You realize that, right? Completely insane, Adrian agreed, a hint of something that might have been amusement crossing his face. But it is the situation we find ourselves in. We can either manage it intelligently or let it spiral into something worse. Jessica studied him. This man who was now legally her husband. What do you get out of this, Adrian? You could have just let me leave that church. Why tie yourself to this mess? Adrian returned to his desk, sitting down and opening his laptop as if they were discussing a business transaction. My reasons are my own, Jessica. For now, accept that I had them and focus on moving forward. It was a non-concern, typical of him. Adrian Steele was a master at revealing nothing he did not want revealed. Fine, Jessica said, frustration creeping into her voice. What exactly does maintaining appearances mean? Adrian pulled up his calendar. There are several events over the next few months where I typically appear. Charity, galas, industry dinners, networking functions. As a newly married man, I would be expected to bring my wife. You would need to attend these with me. The thought of attending high society events, surrounded by wealthy and powerful people, made Jessica's anxiety spike. I am not sure I am cut out for that world, Adrian. I do not have the right clothes, the right background, the right anything. Adrian looked at her directly, his gray eyes intense. You are more capable than you believe, Jessica. I have watched you handle difficult clients, manage complex schedules, and solve problems that would break most people. You can handle a few dinner parties. His confidence in her was unexpected and oddly touching. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and felt her blood run cold. Tyler, the message read, "We need to talk. Please, I made a terrible mistake." Adrian noticed her reaction. What is it? Jessica showed him the phone. Tyler wants to talk. Adrian's expression hardened. And what do you want? Jessica stared at the message. A week ago, she would have done anything to hear those words from Tyler. But now, sitting in Adrian's office, legally married to another man, everything felt different. I do not know, she admitted. Part of me wants to hear what he has to say. Part of me never wants to see him again. Then do not respond yet, Adrian advised. Give yourself time to decide what you actually want, not just what you think you should want. It was surprisingly thoughtful advice. Jessica nodded slowly, tucking her phone away. Okay, I will think about it. The days began to blend together in a strange new routine. At work, Jessica and Adrian maintained their professional relationship with careful precision. But twice that first week, Adrian took her to lunch at expensive restaurants, sitting across from her and making conversation that felt stilted and awkward. They were practicing, Jessica realized, learning how to be comfortable in each other's presence. On Thursday evening, Adrian picked her up from her apartment for their first official event as a married couple. When Jessica opened the door, he paused for a brief moment, something flickering in his expression. She had bought a new dress with her credit card. A simple but elegant black cocktail dress that made her feel slightly more prepared for the evening ahead. You look lovely, Adrian said, and there was sincerity in his voice that surprised her. Thank you. You look very handsome yourself. The event was a fundraiser for the City Children's Hospital, held at an art museum downtown. Jessica's nerves were on fire as they entered the grand hall filled with elegantly dressed people holding champagne flutes and discussing things like market trends and vacation homes in the Hamptons. Adrian kept his hand at the small of her back, a gesture that was both possessive and protective. He introduced her to person after person, always as my wife Jessica, and she noticed how people's attitudes toward her shifted. As Adrian Steele's wife, she was suddenly worthy of respect and attention. Adrian Steele. Congratulations on your recent marriage. A silver-haired man in an expensive suit approached them. I had no idea you were even dating anyone. We kept things private, Adrian replied smoothly. When you know, you know. Why wait? The man laughed and turned to Jessica. You must be quite special to have caught this one. Adrian has been married to his work for as long as I have known him. Jessica forced a smile. I am very lucky. As the man walked away, Adrian leaned close to her ear. You are doing perfectly. Just keep breathing. His breath against her skin sent an unexpected shiver through her. Jessica blamed it on nerves and the unfamiliarity of the situation. Nothing more. They spent the evening navigating conversations, Adrian guiding her through the social minefield with subtle cues and quiet reassurances. When a particularly aggressive woman began asking pointed questions about how they met and how long they had been together, Adrian smoothly deflected by steering the conversation to the woman's recent vacation to Tuscany. During dinner, seated at a table with several other couples, Jessica found herself actually enjoying parts of the evening. Adrian was attentive, without being overbearing, making sure she was included in conversations and occasionally touching her, hand or shoulder in gestures that looked natural to observers. Later, as they danced during the formal portion of the evening, Jessica looked up at Adrian. You are good at this. The performance. Years of practice, Adrian replied. Business is often about performance, making people believe what you need them to believe. And what do you need these people to believe about us? Adrian's hand tightened slightly on her waist. That we are a legitimate couple. That this marriage is real. Jessica fell silent, swaying to the music. The problem was, in moments like this, with Adrian holding her close and looking at her with those intense gray eyes, it almost felt real, and that terrified her. When Adrian dropped her off at her apartment that night, Jessica hesitated before getting out of the car. Thank you for tonight. For making it easier than I expected, Adrian nodded. We have several more events coming up. You will get used to it. Jessica wanted to ask him so many questions. Why did he really marry her? What did he get out of this arrangement? Did he feel any of the strange tension she felt when they were together? But instead, she just said goodnight and went inside. Over the next several weeks, Jessica and Adrian fell into an odd rhythm. They worked together during the day, maintaining strict professionalism. Several evenings a week, they attended events together, playing the role of newlyweds. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the lines between performance and reality began to blur. Jessica started noticing things about Adrian she had never paid attention to before. The way he always ordered her favorite type of wine without asking. How he positioned himself between her and anyone who made her uncomfortable at social gatherings. The small smile that occasionally broke through his serious expression when she made a sarcastic comment. One evening, after a particularly long charity auction, Adrian drove her home through heavy rain. They sat in his car outside her building, neither moving to leave. The rain drummed on the roof, creating a cocoon of sound around them. Can I ask you something? Jessica said quietly. You can ask. I may not answer. Fair enough. Why have you never married before? You are successful, attractive, wealthy. I am sure you have had opportunities. Adrian was silent for a long moment, staring out at the rain-soaked street. I've never found anyone who wanted me for the right reasons. People want my money, my status, my connections. No one has ever just wanted me. The vulnerability in his voice shocked Jessica. It was the first truly personal thing he had ever shared with her. I understand that, she said softly. Tyler wanted the version of me that fit into his world. He never wanted the real me. Adrian turned to look at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. I see the real you, Jessica. I have seen it for 2 years. You are brilliant and strong, and far too good for any man who would abandon you. The air in the car felt suddenly charged with something Jessica could not name. They were sitting so close, the console between them the only barrier. Adrian's hand moved, almost unconsciously, to brush a strand of hair from her face. His fingertips lingered against her cheek for just a moment too long. Jessica's heart was pounding. She should pull away, maintain the boundaries they had established. But she did not want to. She wanted to close the distance between them, to discover if this tension she felt was one-sided or if Adrian felt it too. Adrian seemed to be waging the same internal battle. His jaw was tight, his breathing slightly faster than normal. Then, with visible effort, he pulled back. "You should go inside. It is getting late." The moment shattered. Jessica nodded, feeling both relieved and disappointed. "Right? Yes. Good night." "Adrian." She hurried through the rain to her building, not looking back. Inside her apartment, she leaned against the closed door, her emotions in turmoil. What was happening to her? This was supposed to be a temporary arrangement, a solution to an embarrassing problem. She was not supposed to be developing feelings for Adrian Steele, but as she got ready for bed that night, Jessica could not stop thinking about the way he had looked at her in the car, the way his touch had sent electricity through her skin. She was in dangerous territory, and she knew it. The next morning, Adrian was back to his usual professional demeanor, as if the moment in the car had never happened. Jessica tried to match his energy, burying herself in work. But everything felt different now. Every interaction carried weight. Every glance seemed loaded with meaning. Tyler continued to text her periodically, asking to meet. Jessica finally responded 2 weeks after the wedding, agreeing to have coffee with him. She needed closure, needed to understand why he had left her at the altar. They met at a small cafe, far from both their neighborhoods. Tyler looked terrible, like he had not been sleeping well. When he saw Jessica, his face crumpled with emotion. "Jess, I am so sorry. I do not even know where to start." Jessica sat down across from him, her emotions carefully controlled. "Start with why you left." Tyler ran his hands through his hair. I panicked. That morning, I woke up and thought about spending my entire life with one person, and I just froze. My parents had been making comments about you, about your background, and I let it get into my head. I started thinking maybe they were right. Maybe we were too different. Jessica felt anger burn in her chest. "So you decided to humiliate me instead of having an honest conversation?" I know it was cowardly. I have regretted it every day since." Tyler reached across the table for her hand, but Jessica pulled back. "When I saw the photos of you with that Steele guy, I realized what I had lost." Jessica laughed bitterly. "You realized what you lost? Tyler, you did not lose anything. You threw it away. You threw me away. Can we try again? I will make it right, I promise. We can start over." Jessica looked at the man she had once loved, the man she had planned to build a life with, and felt nothing but pity. "No, Tyler, we cannot. You showed me exactly who you are when things get difficult.
You run.
And I deserve better than that. You deserve better than a fake marriage too," Tyler shot back, anger creeping into his voice. "Everyone knows that Steele guy only married you to save face for his company or something. It is not real, Jess. You do not know anything about my marriage," Jessica said coldly, standing up. "Goodbye, Tyler. I hope you find whatever it is you are looking for. But it will not be with me." She walked out of the cafe feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Tyler was her past, and she was done carrying that weight. The question now was what her future looked like, and whether Adrian Steele might be part of it in a way she had never anticipated. The confrontation with Tyler had clarified something for Jessica. She was done living according to other people's expectations, done shrinking herself to fit into boxes that were never meant for her. But that clarity brought a new complication, because the more time she spent with Adrian, the more she realized her feelings for him were becoming very real. It happened gradually, in small moments that accumulated into something undeniable. The way Adrian started bringing her coffee in the morning, remembering exactly how she liked it, how he insisted she'd take a day off when she was coming down with a cold, and then showed up at her apartment with soup from an expensive restaurant. The small smile he gave her across conference room tables when someone said something particularly ridiculous. 2 months after their unconventional wedding, Jessica found herself working late at the office. Most of the staff had gone home, and she was finishing a presentation for an important client meeting the next day. She did not hear Adrian approach until he spoke. "You should go home. You have been here for 12 hours?" Jessica looked up, rubbing her tired eyes. "Just need to finish this slide deck. The meeting is at 8 tomorrow morning." Adrian walked over to her desk, studying the screen. "It looks perfect, Jessica. Go home and get some rest." She saved her work and began gathering her things. As she stood, exhaustion hit her hard, and she stumbled slightly. Adrian caught her elbow, steadying her. "When was the last time you ate?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. Jessica tried to remember. "Lunch, I think." Adrian frowned. "Come on. I am taking you to dinner. You do not have to do that. I know I do not have to. I want to." They went to a quiet Italian restaurant a few blocks from the office. Over pasta and wine, they talked about things that had nothing to do with work or their arrangement. Jessica learned that Adrian had grown up in foster care after his parents died in a car accident when he was 8. He had worked his way through college on scholarships and loans, built his first business at 23, and never looked back. "Is that why you helped me at the wedding?" Jessica asked. "Because you know what it feels like to be judged for your background?" Adrian considered his wine glass. "Partly, but also because I saw you waiting at that altar with so much hope, and I watched it get crushed by someone who did not deserve you. I could not just stand by and do nothing." Jessica felt her heart clench. "You barely knew me then. We had only ever talked about work." Adrian met her eyes across the table. "I knew enough. I knew you worked harder than anyone else in that office. I knew you put yourself through school while working 2 jobs. I knew you were kind to everyone, even people who treated you poorly. That was enough." The intensity in his gaze made Jessica feel exposed and seen in a way she never had before. "Adrian, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me, all right? Is this still just an arrangement to you? Or has something changed?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working as he seemed to wrestle with his response. Finally, he spoke. "Something changed for me before the wedding, if I am being completely honest. I had convinced myself it was just professional respect and admiration. But when I saw you in that church, saw how those people were treating you, all I wanted was to protect you. And every day since then has made it harder to pretend this is just a temporary solution to a problem." Jessica's heart was racing. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that this fake marriage has become the most real thing in my life. I am saying I look forward to the evenings we spend together more than I should. I am saying I wake up thinking about you and go to sleep wishing you were actually my wife, not just on paper." The confession hung in the air between them. Jessica felt tears prick her eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. "I thought I was going crazy," she admitted. "I thought I was imagining the way you look at me sometimes. The way the air changes when we are alone together." "You are not imagining anything," Adrian said quietly. "The question is, what do we do about it?" Jessica thought about all the reasons this was complicated. He was her boss. Their marriage had started as a lie. The power imbalance alone should have made this impossible. But sitting across from Adrian, seeing the vulnerability in his expression, she realized that none of those reasons mattered as much as what she felt. "I think we stop pretending," she said. "I think we try to make this real." Adrian reached across the table, taking her hand. "Are you sure? Because once we cross this line, there is no going back to the way things were. I do not want to go back. I want to move forward. With you." Adrian paid the check quickly, and they left the restaurant together. The drive to Jessica's apartment was charged with anticipation and nervous energy. When they arrived, Adrian walked her to her door and they stood in the hallway, neither quite ready to say goodnight. "Jessica," Adrian began, but she did not let him finish. She reached up, pulling him down to her and kissed him. Unlike the brief, performative kiss at their wedding, this kiss was deep and urgent, filled with weeks of suppressed longing. Adrian responded immediately, his arms wrapping around her waist, pulling her closer. They stumbled through her apartment door, barely breaking apart. Everything that had been building between them finally found release as they navigated to her bedroom. Leaving a trail of discarded clothing behind them, The next morning, Jessica woke to find Adrian still there, his arm around her waist, his breathing steady in sleep. In the early morning light, his face looked softer, less guarded than his usual expression. She traced a finger along his jawline and his eyes opened, focusing on her immediately. "Good morning," he said, his voice rough from sleep. "Good morning." Jessica smiled, feeling happiness bubble up inside her. Is this strange? Waking up together after we have technically been married for 2 months? Adrian pulled her closer. Everything about our relationship has been strange from the beginning. Why stop now? They spent the morning talking, making plans for a real future together. Adrian suggested Jessica move into his penthouse apartment, and to her surprise, she found herself agreeing. They decided to tell their colleagues at work that their relationship had simply developed naturally after the wedding, which was not entirely untrue. The transition was easier than Jessica expected. Adrian's penthouse was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and more space than she knew what to do with. But more than the luxury, Jessica appreciated the small moments of domesticity. Making breakfast together on Sunday mornings, Adrian reading the newspaper, while she sketched design ideas for a graphic design course she had started taking online. Falling asleep next to him every night and waking up in his arms every morning at work. They maintained professionalism, but there was a new energy between them that people noticed. The gossip shifted from speculation about a scandalous affair to comments about how happy they seemed together. Jessica caught herself smiling more, laughing more, feeling more confident in her own skin. 3 months after they had made their relationship real, Adrian surprised Jessica with a weekend trip to a coastal resort. They walked along the beach at sunset, the waves rolling in around their feet. And Adrian stopped suddenly, turning to face her. "I know we did everything backward," he said. "We got married before we even went on a first date. But I want to do this one thing properly." To Jessica's shock, Adrian dropped to one knee in the sand, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a stunning diamond ring. It's far more elaborate than the simple band he had provided for their hasty wedding ceremony. "Jessica Carter, will you marry me? For real this time? Because I love you, and I want to spend my life proving to you every single day that you made the right choice by giving me a chance." Tears streamed down Jessica's face. "Yes," she laughed through the tears. "Yes, of course, yes." Adrian slid the ring onto her finger, standing to kiss her as the sun set behind them. They planned a small ceremony for 6 months later, just close friends and family. This time, when Jessica walked down the aisle, there was no doubt, no fear, no backup plan. Just Adrian waiting for her with a smile that transformed his entire face, a love that had grown from the most unlikely of beginnings. The ceremony was simple and perfect. Jessica's mother cried tears of joy. Cassidy was her maid of honor again, joking that she was getting very efficient at the role. And when the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, the room remained silent, except for a few chuckles at the absurdity of anyone objecting to 2 people who were already legally married. After the ceremony, at the reception held in Adrian's estate gardens, Jessica found a quiet moment alone with her husband. "Our second first dance?" she said as they swayed to music under string lights. "Who would have thought?" Adrian pulled her closer. "Best decision I ever made, walking up to that altar." "Second best was convincing you to actually fall in love with me," Jessica laughed. "Pretty sure I convinced myself. You just happened to be there." "Lucky me." Adrian murmured against her hair. As they danced, Jessica reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From humiliation and heartbreak to genuine love and partnership, she had walked into that church believing her life was beginning with Tyler, and instead, it had actually begun when Adrian Steele decided to step forward and change everything. 6 months later, Jessica stood in Adrian's office at Steele Enterprises. Now with a new title of creative director, after Adrian had encouraged her to pursue her passion for design, she had just presented a major rebranding proposal to the board, and it had been unanimously approved. Adrian was waiting when she returned to her new office down the hall from his. "Congratulations, Mrs. Steele," he said, genuine pride in his voice. "That presentation was extraordinary." Jessica grinned. Thank you, Mr. Steele. I learned from the best. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her despite the glass walls that made their offices visible to anyone walking by. They had long since stopped caring what people thought. Their love story might have started as a scandal, but it had become something beautiful and real. That evening, as they drove home together, Jessica's phone buzzed with a message. She glanced at it and then showed it to Adrian. It was from Tyler. I saw the announcement about your real wedding. I am happy for you. You deserve it. Jessica deleted the message without responding. Tyler was part of a past that no longer had any power over her. Her present and future were sitting beside her, his hand reaching over to intertwine with hers as they drove through the city toward home. Sometimes the best things in life come from the worst moments, Adrian said quietly. I will never regret walking up to that altar. Jessica squeezed his hand. Neither will I best fake marriage that ever turned real. They both laughed, and Jessica realized that she had never been happier. The woman who had stood at that altar, abandoned and humiliated, felt like a different person. She had grown, changed, found strength she did not know she possessed. And she had found love in the most unexpected place, with a man who had seen her worth when she could not see it. Herself, as they pulled into the parking garage of their building, Adrian turned to her with that small, rare smile she loved so much. Ready to go home, Mrs. Steele? Jessica smiled back, her heart full. Always, Mr. Steele, always.